at BPI France, that then you have to consider finance differently. It's nice to provide loans, guarantees, equities, that's what we're doing. But if you want to help entrepreneurs succeed, you have to do more. You have to go in depth into the understanding of what is the strategy of the company, the technology. And if you provide finance, it's fine. But if you want to help entrepreneurs succeed, you have to provide operational help, you have to provide advisory services, you have to provide MBA programs, because you have to provide training. And we decided, therefore, in 2015 to create accelerator program for SMEs. You know, there are many for startups, none for SMEs, precisely for that. It's a 2-year program, and entrepreneurs have the equivalent of an MBA program, and they have intense advisory services to help them grow with a real impact on employment. Just to give you an example, the first group of 60 companies had a growth of 30% internationally, and their staff increased by 20%. So we will make this program go to hit 4,000 companies, which was announced by Bruno Le Maire last week. 4,000 companies will come into our accelerator program during the next 4 years. Now, to talk about our equity practice, how do you do it differently? Of course, we have funds investing in what we consider our businesses of the future. You mentioned, for example, the Green Fund. We want to invest 4 billion euro by 2018 in what we define as renewables, circular economy, and also energy efficiency. So we created this Green Fund to do it not only through loans and guarantees, but to do it also with equity stakes. So we have, of course, this direct fund investing in future businesses. But, you know, there is a challenge in France also to make sure that the way we practice traditional businesses changes. And that's why I am concerned with CSR, corporate social responsibility, that we see as a driver for change within our companies. I have a portfolio of 500 companies, 500 SMEs. Some of them were created 100 years ago. So how do you make them enter into the new world? CSR is, for me, a driver. So what we're doing is that we assess CSR maturity before we invest. And if the maturity is not sufficient, it's not a problem. It's not a no-go for me. Because if we want to make change happen, we have to take risk. So we invest, but we decide that we will make improvement on at least three criteria that we define and that we will follow. And we put it in our legal documentation, the shareholder pact, and we make sure that the KPIs are followed by our investment teams. I believe it's important to make it not an issue, not a problem, not an obstacle to investment, but a result when we exit with concrete change after we exit, which is usually in average 7 years after we invest. Then maybe to finish, as a manager, I consider very important to be aligned with this. If I have to be the chief caring officer of BPI France, it's because I want my staff to be the chief caring officer of those 500 SMEs. And what that implies is that, you know, we have this chance at BPI France, we have very young teams. We have very newcomers, and most of the time it's their first job. And what we want is for them to give the best of them, to liberate the ideas, to make sure that they can co-develop with managers, the company, and they can co-develop also with our clients new idea. For example, this accelerator program was something we co-developed with 60 SMEs. we didn't know what would happen at the end. So our challenge, and my challenge as a manager, is to retain those talents and make sure that they will maintain and nurture these ideas, that they can have an impact, that they can change the French economy for the best, for job creation in France.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's very promising and very, very optimistic for us to hear. That's what I was saying. This panel is very interesting because you can have a banker, a biodiversity expert, and an innovator seeker right here, Amandine Lepoutre, who are all chief care officers. So Amandine is championing two things: thoughts and action, which are the vectors of your initiative.
Exactly.
And you are very active internationally. You're looking for the leaders of tomorrow, and you are actually demonstrating that innovation can spruce change. So how do you do that?
First of all, we decided 4 years ago to create an international movement which gather innovative forces. It means entrepreneurs as well. So entrepreneurs, creators, and people who are looking for better solutions. And we decided to gather them several times per year, internationally in Paris, in London, in Tunisia, in Morocco, to create dialogue between countries, of course, and as well between those who are thinking the new world and those who are doing solutions. So at the beginning, it was conferences, such conferences like this one today. And day after day, we had a lot of requests about big companies and governments, because they have to be connected with innovative people and entrepreneurs to imagine and to change, of course, to innovate and do their business differently. So after creating this movement, we decided to organize different programs between old companies. Sorry for this old name, but companies who exist more than since more than 15 or 20 years or more than that. And we decided to gather them and to make them work together. So it was very interesting because finally, solution can emerge between countries and different people. So, for example, we work for Tunisian government or French government, and they went to have a working session to imagine how they can disrupt the model they have. And there is a lot of accelerating solution exactly that you are doing with BPI. So I don't know if it's linked between the investment and accelerating program, but I'm sure it is. So this is how we create link between thinkers and doers, between companies and entrepreneurs, between countries and those who are making better work.
What would you say the biggest challenge is when you talk about change? Because I mean, I have to say this here, because for me it's a big moment. Like years ago, when you were talking about CSR or caring or these things, a lot of people would just look at you and be like, no one cares about that. But today, we're in a different paradigm, and there's a huge shift. But I'm sure there's still some kind of challenges on a day-to-day basis when you're trying to spruce change, even with innovation.
Of course, I could talk about education, I could talk about culture, new energies, a lot of things like that. But finally, when you have to innovate, sometimes it's small steps that you can imagine to do business better in a better way. So I'm sure a lot of people here have heard the speech of Mark Zuckerberg in Harvard, and he's talking about purpose and the sense of purpose. So when you do business today, and when companies are doing business, and if they want to grow, they have to think first about their purpose and then about their business. And I'm sure if they want to survive in the world, in the future, they have to think in this with this first step, purpose, and then business. So I'm sure of that because we had a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings with innovative people, and it's exactly the way that it works. So first they have an idea connected with their purpose and the society, and then they create different businesses. So I think this is how it works today.
So did you see, I mean, I'm Canadian, I come from New York, I live in Paris now, but I was really surprised to see that French people care a lot too. Like, I just thought it was
Why?
but care about, you know, it's very interesting when the way the communication in the media expresses the caring and CSR, and I find that you get a lot more information in certain countries. Do you find that yourself? Do you find that, say, like you work with a lot of Arab countries, do you find that it's difficult sometimes from one country to another to instill change?
No, I think it's an international...
Or is it a culture? Basically,
yes.
my question, is there a sense of such a caring culture that you find in some countries more than others?
I think it's an international movement, and all the new entrepreneurs today want to create something better because we have an international conscience that we need to do it in a better way. So, of course, there is a cultural difference, but I think it's something very common to the different countries today. And maybe it's something about the generation when the
millennials.
Exactly.
You have a lot of them in your teams, Fanny. You have a lot of millennials in your team.
I think it's very important as a recruiter to also integrate those aspects. I mean, people challenge you as a recruiter. When you interview millennials and you want to attract talents, you have to be clear on that. They want to make sure that you're aligned with your values, that you're aligned with your strategic objectives, and for SMEs as well, it's an issue because, you know, startups manage to attract talents because they are directly into the future. Big corporates also can attract talents because they are reassuring. When you're an SME, you have to be very clear on that and show what's your differences if you want to attract them. So, yeah, definitely.
Did you want to add something?
No, I think it's exactly what you are saying today. There is maybe two different things. First, when a big company or a new company wants to develop their business, they have to think about their purpose and communicate it with the stakeholder they are locally.
What I like to call the why. Why do you do that?
Exactly, the why is really important, and you have to communicate on it and create links with your environment and stakeholders to explain why you are doing this business. I think you have to start locally and with your friends and family. Sometimes it's easier. And then the word you had was to be aligned. And so if you have a purpose and you are aligned, I'm sure you can develop and survive in all the businesses you want to create.
I like that word, aligned. Do you want to, just to close the session, do you want to just give us one word other than align and impact and caring? What would be your word if you wanted to influence the audience to change?
Same word, but consistency. You have to stay consistent.
And you?
I would say dare to change.
Oh, yeah, it's good. Dare to care.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.